All right, thank you, Cynthia. So this is the Subcommittee on Development Project Review, and this is a special meeting we have to discuss an amendment to some affordable housing regulations. Before we get started, we have the minutes from our last meeting, which was December 15th. So Lane, I don't know if you want to make a motion regarding those minutes. We'll get that out of the way real quick.
I move that we adopt the minutes.
I will second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, moved unanimously. All right, thank you very much. So with that, Jennifer, do you want to give us a quick overview on the proposed?
Sure.
Great.
So let's see, I'll start with affordable housing. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, so we, back in 2021, the Town Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission adopted an affordable housing plan. I think some of you might have been involved with the development of that. Are you guys getting a flashing on your screen of, or is that just me? Okay, hopefully it will resolve itself. So, and one of the items in the affordable housing plan was to increase the required set aside of affordable housing for when you build more than 5 units in town. So right now, if you are building more than 5 units, there's a mandatory inclusionary zoning set aside of 10%. We will never get caught up if we keep this at 10%. And so the Planning and Zoning Commission is proposing to increase that 10% to 15%. There still is that fee in lieu provision. However, with multifamily housing, most of it has to come in as a special permit, and they do have discretion, and they've made it pretty clear that they want to see affordable housing built within, on site. While we did get $1.7 million as part of a fee in lieu for density bonus for the standard, that really doesn't get you very many affordable units. It's maybe, 2 or 3. So there is a provision or there's a statute, 830G. Are you all familiar with that? So basically, that is the affordable housing statute. If every town is required to have 10% of their units be affordable, otherwise they are subject to this 830G statute, which means that a developer can come in and they're not subject to local zoning. So they can come in and they do have to meet, some of the environmental considerations, but even with density, design, they are not subject to that. So there's a couple things. The town affordable housing is very important to Mansfield. It's been, there's been a lot of support from the town council and from the residents and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So folks want to see more of our units to be, designated as affordable. But then there's also, we could get an 830G project, and the more, right now we are subject to 830G. So that would be any developer who comes in and 30% of their units are dedicated affordable can come in and they're not subject to local zoning. So there's a lot of factors that are going into this. And so this zoning amendment is to increase the mandatory set aside from 10 to 15%.
Okay, so couple things. The definition of affordable housing, that's specifically only deed restricted units, correct?
Correct. It's deed restricted to people making 80% of area median income or below. And the deed, they have to be deed restricted, I believe, for 40 years. Otherwise, they do not count towards our inventory.
Gotcha. And then when you say 1.7 million, that gets us 2 or 3 units. So it literally costs like $500,000 a unit to build.
Well, It really depends, right? It's $1.7 million we got from the standard. We also got 35 of the 392 units will be deed restricted, affordable for the 40 years. But then they got a density bonus. So that fee in lieu calculation came in at $1.7 million. So I don't know how many units you can get, but you're still not going to bring us to the 10%, right? Because we're never going to get caught up. We've got 1,300 units somewhere in the permitting process in Mansfield right now. And 392, 35 of those are affordable. We did get that money, but that's really going to, I just don't think it's going to bring us to the 10%. And so, and not me, planning and zoning is the one initiating this amendment.
Yeah, so I guess I understand exactly what you're doing. My contention is and has been for like the last several years that the average rent, and this may not be true this past year, but certainly up until COVID, the average rent, or there were lots of rents available in Mansfield that were within whatever the affordable guidelines are. So while it wasn't deed restricted, it was still available, right? So if the market rent, let's just say, for instance, like a White Oak condo, right?
Yeah.
Up until COVID, you could rent those for like $800, $900 a month. Now that's changed in the last 2 years, but that my understanding was for a 2-bedroom rental, that was well within Section 8 guidelines, and that would fall within the affordable guidelines as well. So there was never a real reason to deed restrict these things because the market kind of solved it for us, right? There was plenty. So I guess it's sort of like a definitional problem as I see it. Like we don't have them deed restricted, but the market is such that it is keeping them affordable.
So
I guess the question is how many of these units exist that would count as affordable because they just are because of our market.
Right. So that would be what they call, if you look at our affordable housing plan, that would be what they call naturally occurring affordable housing. And we do have, the White Oak condos, perhaps like the Rolling Hills community, we do have some of naturally occurring affordable housing. It does not bring us to that state definition of affordable. It has to be deed restricted. I'm just pulling up the affordable housing website because if you go to the Affordable Housing Committee's website, you can we just put up a presentation that I've adapted and given to a number of groups. This is based on our affordable housing plan. So let's see. Basically, I can't read this, so I have to pull it up. The thing is we're not at that 10%. We have a policy, it's a policy decision as to whether or not we want to get to that 10%. I'm hearing from the town council and from Planning and Zoning Commission and several residents that we want to get there. This zoning regulation is one way that can help us get there a little faster.
Are you concerned that any of these projects wouldn't move forward if you increase the percentage from 10 to 15?
I don't know. I think it's finding that sweet spot. So we're working with Tyche, our Tyche Planning and Policy, and they did a review of what other towns are doing. And they seem to think that 15% is that sweet spot. But this is going to be to be determined.
Did Techie give you any idea as to why they picked those other towns?
Well, there's not a lot of people that are doing affordable housing in their regs, so they pulled those.
So I looked at the average sale prices for those towns relative to ours, and they're like significantly higher, like between 36 and 75% higher average sale price than ours. And that's not a direct correlation to commercial, rentals or even rental prices in general, but this is like a rough metric. Like when I was reading through their proposal, the first thing that jumped out at me is like Simsbury, Avon, and Mansfield. Like one of these things is not like the other, right? Like not to.
No, I agree.
So yeah, I don't know that. I agree entirely with the premise that we want to increase affordable housing. And if raising this thing from 10 to 15% is going to get us closer, then I get it. But I think it's also important to look at the fact that we've had a ton of people that have expressed interest, like a ton of people that have expressed interest in building in Mansfield, and only one project that's moving forward so far. And I know there's a bunch of other ones in the pipeline, but they've been in the pipeline for a while too, right? And so if it was a slam dunk and it wasn't like a close decision, would any of these have moved faster? And is this going from 10 to 15% going to tip any of these developers into not building their project? Because the other thing that like no one's taking into consideration is there's some level of demand, right, for rental property.
Yeah.
And we're increasing supply rapidly.
Yeah.
And so as long as demand doesn't increase as much as supply, prices will come down. That's just simple economics. And so maybe what happens is students start substituting away from some of these other apartment complexes that are older or dated or whatever. And then there's an opportunity for the town to come in with some of this fee and lieu money, maybe buy one or two of those complexes, renovate them, and make that affordable. There's other options as opposed to mandating this 10 to 15% increase. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I want to make sure that it's the right way to get where we're trying to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think that you should put your concerns down and definitely have the Planning and Zoning Commission consider that.
I don't mean to be monopolizing the time, guys. If Lane or Lucy, guys, feel free to jump in if you have any questions.
No,
No, I met you officially. Lucy, you're new to this development subcommittee? Because I don't recall that
We invited the entire EDC. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay,
Lucy.
great. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know much about this.
No, I just wanted to introduce myself. Yeah.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I think, Lane, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say the issues that Steve raised were my exact concern. I don't know whether this would, be a dispositive factor in somebody deciding not to build here, because not in addition to us not being in the same economic league as most of the towns, maybe all of the towns listed, it also looks like they all are restricted to a particular zone, and this applies to the entire town, at least.
Any development over 5 acres. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
5 units. Yep. So that even includes a subdivision.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think
that would include a subdivision of single family houses.
Sorry. Wow. Yep. And that it's the 10% is also in is applied to that as well.
You're not going to get any more subdivisions in town if you do that. Like, period, you just won't.
Can I ask a question, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I should know this, Jen, but so this is new development, our current development's grandfathered in? Or not?
This is new development only. Yep, and anyone, you know, this is only going to go into effect. So if they have a public hearing and they vote on that on February 21st, anything that has been received by the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to that going into effect is not subject to that.
Okay,
would that be the majority of what's been proposed on our activity map there?
No, I would say I'm not sure. CMC, the golf course may come in under that. I don't know. The redevelopment of Toast at Four Corners, that would be subject to that. I mean, I'm sorry, they're coming in at probably before that would go into effect.
And the one that we discussed last time on the corner of Timber, is that already in pipeline? So that would be exempt?
No, that's not in the pipeline. That's only, they're only applying that zone right now.
Okay. So the potentially the Toast redevelopment one and possibly the Villa Hills Golf Course.
Yep. They would have to be, they would be subject if they get in before that goes into effect, then they would be subject to the previous zoning requirements.
And when you say get in, that means to submit their application, like it doesn't have to be approved, it just has to be submitted.
Yeah, received. So,
okay.
So that's when the clock starts ticking from the statutory time frame. So yeah, that then becomes a live application.
Okay. Now, was there a second piece of this?
There's another map amendment. I'm sorry, zoning. It's been a long morning already. It's a zoning reg. It's a text amendment for a temporary and limited moratorium on application of the DMR, the Design Multifamily Residence zone, and then the development within the Pleasant Valley Residence Agriculture Zone. And that's that one parcel actually that is owned, it's across from Freedom Green. And the reason for that is that the Planning and Zoning Commission is doing an overhaul of their zoning regulations. As you know, another goal within the affordable housing plan is to develop what they call a middle housing floating zone. So right now that DMR or design multiple residence zone is sort of, it's, there's no real design standards that go with that. And so I think they want to take a look at that to see if there's a way we can get a different form. Right now we've got fairly dense, for Mansfield anyways, fairly dense multifamily housing going in, mainly in the planned business 3 zone, but then actually the golf course is in the RAR 90 zone. But if you meet the requirements where you can apply that design multiple residence zone, for example, you have access to water and sewer, you're on a specific road, I believe it's a collector road, and then you have enough high and dry land, you would apply that zone, and then you'd come in with a special permit. So they want to just take a pause. They want to look at those DMR regulations to make sure that there's appropriate design standards, and maybe see if there's a way that we can incentivize some of the small lot, single family, or less dense, but not your single family, 2-acre zoning.
And could there be a cutout in your previous? So I don't know anything about commercial construction, but I know a fair amount about residential construction and residential subdivision.
Yep.
So I don't know what the costs are of going from 10 to 15% affordable units, but if you told a developer you're going to have to give 15% of your land back to subdivide, I don't see that happening. It's already expensive to subdivide land in our town, and there's not a lot of easily developable land left. So would there be a carve out for single family home subdivisions that wouldn't apply? If that's what you're going for, if you're trying to get these smaller lots,
The
it'll
middle
hopefully be
housing.
more affordable. Yeah, it's not
I
going to
don't,
be more
so
affordable.
what the text amendment right now is to enact a temporary and limited moratorium, like we did that a while back on multifamily. And then we did that obviously for the cannabis establishments, but it's just a pause to take a look at that. They don't, and that has to be, all of those items have to be looked at and to see if, that would be part of those zoning regulations. This text amendment is just to pause on the application of the DMR zone.
I don't see a real negative to the pause, but what would the counter argument be to that?
Well, I guess if someone, a pause, time is money, right? And so if they're wanting to get a development in and we're taking that pause and we're changing, then we're introducing uncertainty to them because they don't know what those regulations are going to be, then that could be, that would be the negative side, I would say.
So the DMR would apply to multifamily, like the standard of four corners type development?
No, that would not, the standard is in the planned business zone, planned business 3. So that would not impact any of that. So it would not impact the golf course because they're going to be applying the RAR 90. They did a zone change and you can do multifamily provided you meet certain criteria in the RAR 90 zone. The DMR is where you could apply it. You could apply the DMR zone in conjunction with a special permit in areas of town. So for example, Halinko applied the DMR when they developed. Meadowbrook Gardens also applied the DMR down there because that was not zoned for multifamily. So they met the criteria within that zone to apply DMR with a special permit. It's kind of a technical application.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, this is a pause just to kind of take a look at our regulations. And we're hoping to get, it would be, we said through December of 2023 so that we can get something on the books.
Do you have anybody, I know there's nothing that's been submitted yet, but is there anybody that's coming in and discussing these potential DMR uses?
I don't know that we haven't had someone specifically say that they want to apply the DMR. But well, maybe the one, perhaps the one at the tree farm, the Toll Tree Farm, that they may be applying the DMR.
So it's basically like an overlay to get more density.
Correct.
Okay.
So if the tree farm on 44, that is RAR 90. And so what they would be doing is applying for a zone change. And they would get, if you apply DMR, because they're on a state road, they have access to water and sewer, they possibly could apply that DMR. If all the other things make sense for them.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay.
So the public hearing will be on the 21st. If you can submit anything up until the close of the public hearing, but if you want it included in the packet, I just ask that you send that to us at noon of the Thursday before. Okay.
Jennifer, thank you very much. It's complicated stuff. It's really helpful to have you here to explain it.
It is complicated. I see the DMR, I've got to talk with the Planning and Zoning Commission on this, and also with our consultant Tyke, but I'm sort of thinking of something like a type of form-based zone. And I think that's what the Planning and Zoning Commission is thinking about too, but it would be sort of this compact residential transition zone. So if you recall the mixed use center transitional zone that was applied, it's tied specifically to the future land use map, right? And there's only 5 parcels in town that were designated that on the future land use map. That would be something similar that perhaps could work for the DMR. So instead of DMR, we'd have this compact residential transition zone that if your parcel was designated that on within the future land use map of the POCD, because folks that was vetted and folks said that they wanted this type of development there through that public process, then they could apply a very prescribed and specific set of criteria. And then instead of a special permit, you would have a site plan, which, and for the town and for a developer, that gives you more certainty, right? So you know exactly, if you do exactly what is stated in those zoning regulations, then you can get that. And instead of going through a special permit, which is a much more involved process, you just submit a site plan, and then you can get that development. So I think that works both from the town's perspective, because we're really articulating what we want. And if I'm a developer, you want certainty as to what a town wants, and then you also want to know that it's not going to take a huge amount of time. So that's sort of what I'm envisioning, but this is up to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
And is this like you would identify parcels ahead of time, or it would just be?
So you can't just identify parcels ahead of time. Like it would have to be tied. Either you have to have very specific criteria. Like, for example, if you look at the DMR, the way you can apply the DMR is if you're on a specific street, if you have access to water and sewer. So, and with the mixed use center transition zone, the way you can apply that zone is if your parcel has been designated in the future land use map of the POCD as mixed use center transition. So you can't be like arbitrary and capricious. It has to be the standards have to be very clear.
Gotcha. Okay. Lucy or Lane, anything else for Jennifer?
Nope.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to mention to you is that some of this is going to be this DMR information, well, the application of this DMR zone. I think another reason to pause is that we are just about to embark on this neighborhood plan for north and west of campus, those areas north and west of campus. And I think there are some undeveloped and underdeveloped parcels in those areas where this middle housing floating zone revised DMR regulation could be applied. And we really want to make sure we get a lot of public input. So there will be opportunity for the EDC, for residents, for all sorts of folks to come out and tell us what they really want in this area. So.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
That was a lot. A lot to take in all at once.
A lot going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think the easiest one first, I don't know if you guys want to chat about this now or you need more time to think about it, but the moratorium, I don't see a real problem with. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. We want to make sure we're moving in the right direction with some thought and some input from everybody in the community so that we're all getting what we want. So that one, I don't see a problem with supporting. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
No, I'm fine with that. I see that one as being sort of less in our wheelhouse than the other, but
Yeah, I would agree. I think where we would come in is maybe commenting on what they actually want to do once they enact the moratorium, what changes they want to make to that zoning overlay.
Yep.
The rental one I'm struggling with. I definitely get the whole wanting to increase affordable housing or that percentage. But I don't know that that's the right way to go about getting what we want. And I don't know, I guess that one requires a little bit more thought, but I would want more data or more analysis to figure out, is this gonna break the bank such that we're not going to get any of these developments, because it's no longer net positive for these developers to do this, because if they're not going to do these developments, if that kills the deal, then you're not getting the units and you're not getting the fee in lieu. So right. you're moving the wrong direction, right?
Yeah, I was concerned that the analysis that they did was really pretty superficial. Like you said, they just dragged out some other Connecticut towns without apparently considering the extent to which they're comparable, and also the fact that these seem to apply to zones as opposed to the entire town, and ours is apparently going to apply more broadly. So I guess I'd like to see a little bit more about whether the Planning and Zoning Commission had considered that, or I guess our job is really to provide them with input. So I guess my suggestion for input would be is that we let them know what all of our concerns are and just leave it at that. It's kind of, at the end of the day, it's, I think, up to them, and we can obviously say we're supportive of reaching the affordable housing goal, but we have a number of concerns about how it might affect new housing starts in the town, and how much analysis was actually done to really consider it, whether it was adequate.
And if I may have misunderstood Jennifer, but it sounded like they picked those particular towns because there weren't a lot of towns that had that provision that existed. And so is this a provision? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, that's what I heard her say.
So if this is a provision that doesn't exist widely, there's 169 towns in the state and only 4 of them have it, or 5 of them have it. Is this the right way to go about getting what we want? I keep coming back to like freshman year Econ 101, like the more supply you have for a given level of demand, prices are going to go down. So we want prices to come down and have more affordable rents. We should build more housing. That will make everything more affordable. And it may not be the project that you're building is more affordable. So if you put up a brand new, the standard of 4 corners, those units might not be affordable, but it's going to free up somewhere else in town where it's going to become more affordable, and probably one of the older developments that people are substituting away from, right? And so will that give us more bang for the buck? If we have this development, like, just for the sake of argument, just the standard of 4 corners, I know it's already approved, right? But if you didn't have that development, you'd lose the tax revenue, you'd lose the fee in lieu, and you'd lose the affordable units that they're going to have. And so if you increase this from 10 to 15%, and all of a sudden you lose something like that, it's a pretty major loss, because you're losing affordable units, you're losing fee in lieu, you're losing tax revenue, and you're not getting what you want. So I think those would be the things that I would put in the letter as a concern.
Yeah, I agree. I also don't know. I didn't look at the statute 830G, but if the worry is that someone could come in and offer to do 30% of their units as affordable housing and get, some ability to evade other zoning regulations, how likely realistically is that to happen? Not sure it's that much of a worry.
And then it's sort of like, well, if 10% seems to be working because we have all these applications that people are submitting under 10, which is what we have now. And then 30% is sort of like this 1030G limit. Where's that happy medium in the middle? Is it 15 or, I mean, if you want to play devil's advocate, maybe it should be a different number than 50. Maybe it should be 20. Like, I'd like to know that that's the right number as opposed to something else.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when Linda was here, I feel like there were either people that said they were coming in under 830G and they didn't, or they did. I do feel like, Lane, to your point, I mean, I do feel like there's been some discussion around that. And I'm just trying to think which development it might have been around.
Was Eagleville Green 830G?
Maybe, which would make sense since that's specifically what they were trying to do. It's affordable housing.
Yeah.
That might be it, Steve. So maybe my point is moot, but.
I mean, it's kind of ironic that we want more affordable housing, but we don't want more affordable housing unless we can say exactly how we want it built. I mean, that's sort of right? That's sort of what we're saying here. We don't want to allow this 830G. We want to get our percentage up because we want to be able to say where and how it looked and all this kind of stuff, as opposed to just somebody coming in and saying, this is what I'm building.
Yeah.
But I think your point, as far as, people, once these newer shiny animals come on board, there's a push and pull somewhere, I think, because it's a lot of development. I mean,
I would, if Ryan ever watches this is a good idea for Ryan. Why not forget this whole 10 to 15% thing and go for a bigger fee in lieu? And then, if UConn's building a net 1,600 beds more, right? Plus the standard, plus possibly the golf course, plus possibly Toast piece, that's a lot more inventory. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that is going to go through a gentrification, revitalization, whatever. What if we had a war chest of several $1 million and you could go in and buy some of these and then fix them up, make them nice, and then do 100% affordable or 50% affordable or whatever it is, some other number that's significantly higher to get you to where you need to be. I'm just wondering, what's the best bang for the buck? Like, is it making these developers go from 10 to 15% so you get an extra couple of units or whatever it is? Or can we find a way to stretch it and get even more units that solves the problem quicker and more direct?
Yeah, there's a lot of policy questions around all of this for sure. And this is one, what they're trying to do is obviously a policy decision.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on, I think you nailed it. I think we just put our concerns in a letter and let them sort it out. That's sort of their job, right?
Yep.
Any other concerns we should put in this letter?
None for me.
So I will work with Cynthia on trying to draft something up and we'll get it out to you guys for your review. She wanted it by the 14th or 16th?
The 16th at noon. So
right.
Steve, we probably, because this isn't, everything's great. Let's do, I think that we should share the draft with the whole EDC.
Okay.
If they have any comments, they need to respond just to me because there can't be a dialogue back and forth. So
right.
I think the way it was left, right, they authorized the letter.
Right.
But since we didn't have the opportunity to discuss it with them, I think we have to give them the opportunity to see what the subcommittee is thinking.
Yep. Nope, I agree.
And that's probably what you thought. I just want to clarify.
No, I think that's fantastic. So maybe you and I can try to have this drafted by like a week from today. And then that'll give us a week to send it out for EDC review and whatever. And that will still get us in before the 16th deadline. Because I think we have 3 weeks, right? Basically, before the 16th.
Yeah. what's today's the 25th? Yeah, almost exactly 3 weeks. Wait, is that right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Do you mind starting it, Steve? Just because we're a little short-staffed right now.
Yeah. I'm not going to make it look fancy or letterhead or that kind of stuff.
No, I'll take care of that.
Flush it out. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Great, guys. Thank you so much for your help today and for your questions and all that. And hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too.
Do we need a motion to adjourn since it's the official meeting?
So moved.
Well, there we go.
Lucy, you got the second. Awesome. All right, guys.
I don't think she can second because she's not a committee member, subcommittee member. So it has to be Steve.
I'll second. Lucy,
But
thanks for
if you're
joining
welcome
us.
to join,
Thanks.
Lucy.
I don't know anything about this. I just thought I would come to hear and learn. Sorry.
No, it's great to have more people here. So thank you very much for coming. It's always nice to have more people participate. So
Definitely.
all right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
I'll see you later, Steve.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.